Welcome back to another tabletop review. Today we'll look at the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport 2 rifle. This is the Smith & Wesson popular AR style sporting rifle, the M&P 15 Sport 2. If you've watched many of my videos, you know that basically I'm a handgun guy. I own a bunch of different types of handguns. With the exception of a couple of shotguns, I don't have many long guns in my collection. In fact, other than an old Ruger 10-22 rifle many years ago and a couple of air rifles, I've stuck with collecting handguns. Even my Ruger Chargers aren't technically rifles. And it's not that I don't like rifles, it's just that I haven't had much need for them, although I have thought about getting a lever action Winchester or Henry. My son pointed out that as a reviewer of firearms, I really ought to own at least one rifle. Now my son, being career military, thought that one ought to be an AR style rifle. That led to a long discussion on the best choices and why. Now let me just say, I'll concede my son knows more than I'll ever know and maybe ever want to know about these rifles. And if I was going into a combat situation, I certainly would have followed his advice more closely and probably would have spent between $1,500 and $3,000. But you know, in the end, I couldn't justify spending a lot on my first rifle. So for a bit more than $700, I became the owner of the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport 2. This is the version 10305 with Magpul 30-round magazine, the Magpul M-Lock handguard, and the Magpul folding rear sight. So now after a few months of ownership, what do I think? Let's make sure this gun is cleared first. By the way, if you enjoy this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Smith & Wesson is an American company that's been making firearms since 1852. Smith & Wesson is well known for its high-quality revolvers. The now famous Smith & Wesson M&P military and police line began with its polymer frame short recoil-operated lock breech semi-automatic pistols, introduced in the summer of 2005. Smith & Wesson announced their first short-stroke gas piston action rifle, the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 PS and PSK, a piston AR-15, in 2009. Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport model was released in 2011. With notable design improvements, Smith & Wesson introduced the M&P 15 Sport 2 in 2016. That year, the Smith & Wesson M&P Sport 2 was the best-selling rifle in America, and 5 years later, it still remains very popular. There are quite a few variations of the M&P 15 Sport 2 listed on the Smith & Wesson webpage, and a variety of sales packages have been promoted over the past years. This particular model is the 10305, which comes outfitted with Magpul components that one might otherwise need to add. I chose this model because it came out of the box at a good price and with just about everything I would have added. As for packaging, the M&P 15 comes fairly simply packaged in a cardboard box. And in the cardboard box we have some foam. We also have the packaging of the Magpul accessories. We have the manual and other paperwork. We have an Allen wrench provided, and we have, of course, the lock. That's basically it. Well, as I said, this is the 10305 model, sometimes referred to as the Magpul model. It has a Magpul 30-round magazine included, and I added 2 more Magpul 30-round magazines and a 10-round magazine. Also picked up the Uplula loader for this. Works really quite well for loading these magazines. The gun comes with the Magpul flip-up rear sight and also, of course, the fixed A2 front sight here. It comes with the forend, the Magpul forend, and in the forend I added a grip. I haven't installed it yet, but I think that'll work out quite nice. And I also had a reflective dot sight, red dot sight, that works out really quite well for this gun. And if I need long range accuracy, I can always add a scope combo system that I have here. Again, works really quite well for this gun. So for all the accessories I've added, it was about another $250. That's not high-end stuff, but it all works, and so that worked out pretty well. As for specifications, the M&P 15 rifle is what is known as a sporting rifle. Its design is in an AR style, and it's essentially to serve multiple uses under a variety of conditions. As I've already said, Smith & Wesson offers numerous variations of the 15. The M&P 15 Sport 2 is an updated design of the 15, which features a bolt assist and dust cover, forged 7075 T6 aluminum upper and lower, 6-position collapsible stock, and an armorite barrel finish. The caliber is .223 Remington, 5.56 NATO. The action is gas-operated semi-automatic. Barrel length is 16 inches with a 1 to 9 inch rate of twist and finished in black matte. While the barrel is not chrome-lined, it is finished with nitride inside and out. The barrel is also threaded and fitted with an A2 style flash suppressor. Overall length is 32 5/8 inches collapsed, 35 1/2 inches fully extended. Overall height is 8 3/4 inches. Maximum width is 2 3/8 inches. Unloaded weight is about 6.5 pounds. Again, this is the 10305 or Magpul model, so some of these features are unique to this model. The sights are A2 fixed front and Magpul folding rear. There remains about 4.5 inches of Picatinny rail available forward of the rear sight. The Magpul 4N heat shield has multiple M-lock slots available and a 2-inch rail on the right side here. The stock and grips are polymer, and the stock can be adjusted to 6 positions. There's strong stippling on the grips and the rear pad of the stock. This MP15 Sport 2 came with one 30-round Magpul magazine. Sling attachment points are here and here. The controls are AR style with a reversible safety. The mil-spec charging handle is here, and the bolt release is here. Actuation is fairly easy. The mag release is here, and the mags fall free when ejected. The trigger is about 4 pounds. Nice. With a sharp, crisp, short reset. There's an instructional card provided on the Magpul rear sight that explains the adjustments available. Basically, you can stow the sight by pushing it down like this. It can be deployed by pressing the release latch here. The adjustment for windage is here. One click equals about 3/4 of an inch at 100 yards. And you can switch to the larger aperture by folding the pinpoint aperture forward like this. Now, before I get into talking about my range experience, I'm going to say once again I'm no expert when it comes to these style of rifles. But here are my first thoughts regarding its function, feel, and capabilities. After a few months of ownership and a few trips to the range, I've learned quite a bit, and I've grown to really like this rifle. The first thing I should mention is that I think Smith & Wesson did a great job in their design and pricing of the M&P 15 Sport 2. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details here, but as I've looked at articles and internet reviews, there's an overall consistency of opinion regarding how well constructed this rifle really is. You could spend more, but for a basic entry-level AR, it would be hard to do better. Now, as it turned out, it was a good thing that I had purchased the additional magazines because I went through ammo pretty quickly. And as for ammo, at the time, ammo was sort of hard to find in my location. But I did luck out with a few boxes of Winchester 62 grain full metal jacket green tips. They were the only 5.56 rounds available, so that's what I had. And cutting to the chase, after about 500 rounds, the gun has performed perfectly without a single problem since I bought it. It's easy to handle and control. Accuracy was much better than I expected. And with the addition of the scope, it was easy to maintain a very tight spread at even 100 yards. As for cons, as a budget gun, the Smith & Wesson M&P Sport 15-2 is sort of a no-frills AR-15. Now keeping that in mind, overall, given what I paid for it, it's a pretty nice rifle. However, from my point of view, the trigger, although very good, felt just a little gritty. Polishing surfaces might help. And as you might have observed during the range footage, the M&P Sport 15 seemed to overheat and smoke a lot, and it wasn't like I was racing the gun. Note that most of the other models of the MP15 Sport have plastic forends, and there are complaints out there about overheating. Thankfully, this model's Magpul forend heat shield did a great job of protecting my hand. It never really got hot. Otherwise, the gun functioned like it's supposed to. However, when I went to clean it after my range experience, I noticed that the trigger pins had walked a little. Again, not bad, but noticeable. I've learned that this is unusual for AR-15s, and anti-walk pins are available, although I'm not sure they're needed here yet. Now on the pro side, after about 500 rounds, the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport 2 hasn't failed even once. It does what it's supposed to reliably, accurately, and comfortably. And it didn't cost a fortune. Plus, there are plenty of accessories and upgrades out there if you feel the need. I think that's pretty good. And again, this rifle is much more accurate than I expected. Now another pro is that this gun is actually available in an inexpensive .22 caliber model, the Smith & Wesson M&P 1522 Sport. Now why do I consider that a pro? Well, if you want to introduce a novice to the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport, a .22 caliber version of a similar gun could be of value. And for economical live fire training, which I'm always a fan of, .22s can be very useful. Disassembly begins with making sure the gun is cleared first and removing the magazine. We're going to release the bolt. We're going to push the takedown pin here all the way through the other side. That allows us to pivot the lower from the upper. We're going to also remove that pin right there. That's the pivot pin. That allows us to remove the lower from the upper. We're going to pull the charging handle to the rear and remove the bolt carry assembly, and then pull the charging handle back and down to remove it. Now you could remove the forend by pulling down on this slip ring here. Smith & Wesson suggests 2 people for that process. The forend is actually in 2 pieces, a lower piece here and an upper piece. And you can also remove the buffer spring. There's a little retaining unit right there. You just push down on it, push down on that retaining unit, and it allows you to remove that buffer spring. Once the bolt carrier is clear of the firearm, move the bolt forward in the carrier to the unlock position and remove the firing pin retaining pin. Push the bolt into the carrier and put it in the lock position, and then remove the firing pin out the rear of the bolt carrier. Rotate the bolt cam 1/4 turn and lift it out. Remove the bolt from the bolt carrier. After cleaning, Smith & Wesson suggests lubricating all the metal parts by wiping them down with a cloth dampened with a high-quality firearm oil. Remove excess oil, but leave a light film of oil on all the metal parts of your rifle, inside and out. Reassembly is basically the reverse order that you took it apart. Make sure that the gas rings here on the bolt are not aligned when reassembled. You can see one open here and one open here, so this one's good to go. We're going to return the bolt to the carrier, and then we're going to return the bolt cam pin. Rotate it a 1/4 turn here, Return the firing pin. The firing pin retaining pin. And now the bolt assembly is ready to go back into the gun. I'm going to return the charging handle. Point it down and slip it in, and there it catches right there. And return the bolt carrier. Now we can return the lower unit to the upper unit, starting with the pivot pin. And that's it. The manufacturer's suggested retail price for the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport II is $768 to $834, depending on the model, but actual sales of the basic models have been as low as $500. The suggested retail price of this Magpul Model 10305 is $813, but it's been selling for closer to $770 as of today. I paid $750 at one of my local stores for this one, so better prices can be found out there. By the way, the actual sales price on the Smith & Wesson M&P 1522 Sport, the 22 version of this gun, has been about $450. Not bad. Now before we end today's video, I'd like to remind you that if you haven't already, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe down below. And thanks for watching. So the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport II isn't a high-end AR by any stretch of the imagination, and it wasn't meant to be. It's a functional entry-level AR with the potential for upgrades if desired. But it's reliable, relatively comfortable to shoot as it is, and its accuracy may surprise you, yet it's reasonably priced. And I think the Magpul Model 10305 makes sense because, from what I've heard, the plastic fore-end overheating is often one frequent criticism of the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport, because this model, the 10305, came outfitted with Magpul components that I probably would have added, including the Magpul heat protective fore-end. That potential problem was already solved. As I said earlier, you could spend more for a basic entry-level AR, but it would be hard to do better. Well, okay, I'm still more attracted to the classic stuff, so I'll admit that this modern style rifle didn't really offer much appeal to me at first. I'd still rather have the Winchester or the Henry, but I'll also confess that this M&P 15 Sport II surprised me. I hadn't expected to enjoy shooting it, and its accuracy turned out to be a bit of a revelation. It's indeed very comfortable to shoot, easy to keep on target. I found myself looking for more and more challenging targets every time I took it to the range. I can also see the attraction of the AR or sporting rifles and why they're just so popular. So after a few months of ownership, what do I think? In brief, yeah, I really like this gun. And I really appreciate the advice my son gave me. This Smith & Wesson M&P 15-2 Magpul model turned out to be just right for my needs. I don't feel as though I spent too much, and it's working like it's supposed to. And I'm having fun with it, so what more could I ask for? Any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe.